Hi, everyone. We're going to get started here. I know it's the afternoon after lunch, so we have to be the pump up crowd. Are you ready? That's why we're not going to sit. We're going to come over here and stand. We have one person on the panel, Mohammed, who had a little bit of car trouble. He will be here soon, so when he gets here, we should do something funny. Like we should
Slow clap?
we should, we'll start clap. When he gets here, we're going to clap. Okay, great. So, hi, everyone. I'm Corey.
Oh, slow clap. You see how far that is? Unless he's coming.
He might sneak in over here.
Right there. If you see him come there, we'll make his wall.
Yep, nope, I appreciate that clarifying question. So today you were in the room focused on empowering youth populations through experiential learning programs. So I'm Katie Shorey. I'm going to moderate our conversation today. I'll tell you a little bit about me, but my role is to ask the questions, keep the conversation going, and if anyone has a question at any time, please shoot your hand up and I will run over to you with the microphone. And we will be covering a lot of ground today. So thank you all for being here. This has been a great conference. Is this anyone's first time at Inclusion Maine? I'm curious. Wow, okay, great, good. Every year, more and more new people. Hamza and team do such a great job. So Live and Work in Maine is a proud sponsor of this event. Live and Work in Maine, has anyone heard of that organization? Great, great, great. I'll give you a little overview. Live and Work in Maine is a nonprofit, and we market the state as a great place to live and work. And we are a public-private partnership, so that means we are underwritten by employers and the state, and we also have great partnerships with lots of people in this room, but also across the state. Educate Maine is one of those partners. We will share a few examples and stories of how we all work together. But Live and Work in Maine executes marketing campaigns. We have a job board. We're a really good first resource for when people are considering maybe a move to Maine, maybe figuring out, oh, I already live in Maine and I want a new job. We promote the student loan tax credit. So for anyone who has student loans, every year when you file your taxes, as long as you live and work in Maine, if you pay income tax in Maine, every year you can get a tax credit of up to $2,500. So that is called the Maine Student Loan Tax Credit, if you have not yet heard of it. So I just wanted to make a plug for that. But I would love for our panelists to just tell a little bit about themselves, their organizations, just so you set the context of who you are and what you do. I'll pass it to you, Meg.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. My name is Meg Krieger. I'm a workforce development specialist at Educate Maine. If you have not yet heard of Educate Maine, we are a statewide business-led nonprofit. We work in a variety of different signature programs, some of which you may have heard of without realizing they're all connected. There's two primary buckets is how we like to talk about it. One being educator engagement. So many of you will have heard of the Maine Teacher of the Year program, the County Teacher of the Year program, which we help to administer. We also work with educators through the Educator Leaders Experience program, bringing educators around the state to meet different businesses and business leaders in different counties, among other things. And then on the other side, there's the workforce development work that we do on the Maine Career Catalyst team, which is where I am. Our goals there are to work with businesses to build out different experiential learning opportunities and to connect opportunity seekers with those different pathways. If a 2 or 4 year college is not right for them, or if they have completed that degree, we work through internship, apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship. We'll talk in a little bit more detail about all of those different programs. And then we also work in sort of in the middle in STEM pathways with the Maine Mobile Biolab, some of the work directly related to computer science educators and businesses. So all of that to say, we obviously work with youth in a variety of different ways and get to engage with them directly and indirectly through their educators, and excited to dive into all of that with you throughout this conversation.
Over to Dustin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Oh my God. Good afternoon, everybody. Holy cow. Do you know how beautiful it is outside? You're in here. Bring that outside energy in here. My name is Dustin Ward, so I am bringing two hats to this afternoon. One is my first business, It Is Time. I am an equity and reconciliation advocate. The focus of that is first in equity, how do we remove barriers and limitations for people from multiracial backgrounds, but specifically from multi-ethnic and racial communities. The reconciliation piece is how do we bridge the gap between multiracial individuals. And I'm an advocate, so I'm not here as an expert, no guru. I advocate for both of those things. So that's my first hat. A lot of that has been consulting work. Whenever anybody asks me, it's a lot of DEI work is the word that we say. But that's what it's been the last 4 years since I started that business in 2020. The other hat I wear is I also am co-founder of a company called Tea Time. And Tea Time brings equity and inclusion through the game of golf. How many golfers we have in the building? How many would like to get into the game of golf? Okay, you three, see me later. But the beauty of that is to use the game of golf to, again, bring equity and inclusion into our world. And so I've been working since last year to use golf as a means for doing that as well. So I have a few hats. You might feel both come through, but my primary reason for being here is a lot of the work I've done in consulting with a variety of organizations, whether it be schools, municipalities, nonprofits, and other businesses. So thank you.
Awesome. Can you take a former field hockey player and train them
Absolutely.
to golf? Okay,
I can
great.
take anybody and get them excited about golf because I love golf a lot. So absolutely.
Well, we're going to dive into the data just to start. So in an earlier session, I was learning statistics that we are seeing an increase in Maine's youth that are identifying as LGBTQ+. So just curious what you all are seeing when it comes to demographic trends around our youth and that are diverse youth across the state. So if you want to start us off.
I'll kick it off. Looking specifically through the lens of Educate Maine, which is just kind of looking at school-aged populations, thinking about the workforce. I know that we all know that Maine is an aging state with age and having an older population being a huge part of our demographic story that we hear over and over again. Something that I think maybe gets overlooked in relationship to that is that our youngest populations in Maine are our most diverse populations. I'm going to try to remember all of the stats, but they're right behind me in case I forget. But in the last 5 years, there's been an increase of 28% of multi-language learners in Maine schools. So the school-age population is diversifying faster than other populations. Between the 2010 and 2020 census, the population of BIPOC youth in our schools has increased by 52%, where the white youth in our schools, that percentage has dropped by 17%. So I think that just tells us that the overall population may be aging and that next generation is going to look very different. We see that mirrored in our own programming. So for example, one of the programs that we run is a summer internship experience where we work directly with businesses to engage all of their interns in a series of networking opportunities throughout the summer. So this past summer, we worked with over 100 employers, about 524 interns. But if we look at the numbers from 2024, we don't have them all from this year yet. We had 29% of our interns identify as BIPOC. Not a huge number, certainly not as high as we would like it to be. But we have seen that increase slowly over time as our program has also grown in large part. So we were at 24% when the program started 5 years ago, but our number of interns at that time was also about 200 interns. So just highlighting that while the percentage increase is not massive and it's not necessarily growing as fast as it should be in terms of representation of the whole population, we're seeing the momentum, we're seeing the growth, and just want to focus on those demographics within the youngest parts of our population, as that's going to be key moving forward.
Excellent, thank you. I'll add just a couple of quick things. First though, do you mind if I ask a question? Oh, please. Someone define youth for me. What is youth? I know you want to answer, so go ahead. Go ahead. 18 and under or under 18? Okay. Any 18 to 60. 18 to 60, you said? Okay. Yeah, go ahead. 16 to 24. Anybody else? 18 to 25. Anybody else? 12 to 20. What did you say? Youth is a state of mind. Oh, like whatever my age is. Okay, so here's the first fun part of this exercise. It is hard to take this term youth and drill it down. Now, what none of you said is what about ages 6 to 11, 6 to 15? Because how many of y'all have kids? I got 2 boys at home, 6 and 4. A lot of the things that they are experiencing about identity and inclusion and who they are and what they want to be starts there. They are youth as well. Now, again, they're not going to get hired, but I think a lot of us think of youth in this, well, how can I hire you? How can I make you work? But I think a lot of the demographics show us that that concept of getting into a labor force and becoming something actually starts earlier. So I think you're all somewhat right, even up to age 60, even the state of mind of being a youth. But I think for me, one of the 3 things that I'll give you in terms of this question is, one, there's been a huge shift in identity. And the reason that we're seeing this multiracial reality is since 2020, a lot of youth, people who are younger, even up to age 60 and beyond, are beginning to identify with multiple backgrounds. And I think as employers, as people who are looking at the youth population, you are bringing in individuals who have multiple backgrounds who say, I am many things, both racially, ethnically, how they sort of identify in terms of their gender. And I think that has to be part of the youth conversation. So we're moving away from age so much as who am I and how do I fit into the grand scheme of things. So that's 1. 2 is the cultural shift. Ever since COVID, we have, and I have seen too, a shift in youth who have come in with different cultural backgrounds. Not everybody's from Maine. Hold up, but not everybody believes that. A lot of people think that Maine people have always grown up in Maine and you're just a Mainer and that's just how it is. And if you're from away, you're not meant to be here. And yet, over the last few years, we've seen youth who have their parents with different cultural backgrounds. They come from many states, many countries, as you just heard. So they're coming in with different cultures way ahead of this 18 age range that we sometimes think of youth. Third thing I'll say is that one of the things that I've noticed over the last year, and maybe in your towns you've noticed it as well as we talk about schools and the budget fights, is a lot of students are not enrolling in school. A lot of homeschool students. So the youth that you are thinking about aren't always available in these schools, and you may have to go to their parents or into different homeschool co-ops or in other ways to engage with the youth. That's the shifting trend now in the last year. And you're seeing enrollments actually dip in some of these public schools that I've seen. So I'll give you those 3 things as thoughts as we answer that question.
I've been trying to, when someone says from away, I've been trying to say, we don't say that anymore.
No, we don't.
So we should just call it out when we hear that. We don't say that anymore. So Meg, I really want you to dive into specifics around apprenticeships and workforce development, so some of the programs that you specifically work on, because the program's been around for many years now. You've added on different regional focuses. You've added on a specific sector focus. And I'll just give a plug from the outside looking in, the main Career Catalyst program. How I like to think about it is, like, when I spent most of my 20s in Washington, D.C., and it was so easy for me every single summer and in the few semesters that I spent there to go back to D.C. because of the internship cohorts that I was part of in D.C. It gave me a built-in network, it gave me a built-in friend group, they offered professional development for us. And so when I was hemming and hawing about what I wanted to do the next summer, it was just easy for me to say, oh, I'll just go back to DC because I have a young professional network there. And that is what I see the main Career Catalyst program doing, because if you're creating this environment where any main employer, so even if you have one intern, you can and should opt your summer intern into that program because it's a built-in network for them, and it creates this professional opportunity for them. So that's just my plug for why
Thank you.
more and more, and then that's a retention tactic as well. The more young people that we can, even if I had a bank be like, well, I heard somebody from a bank told me, well, I don't want them meeting too many other employers. What if they try to poach them and have them work at another company? And I said, well, if they only think that your company is the only opportunity for them, that's not going to make them feel great. We need to show young people that there are ample industries and sectors and companies that they can grow their career in. I mean, you don't want to just move to Maine for one opportunity or stay in Maine for one opportunity. We need to show them that we have lots of things going on. So it's more of a storytelling thing as well. So I'll get off my soapbox, and so you can go into specifics of your program, but I just wanted to give it a plug.
Yeah, and thanks so much to Live and Work in Maine for being such a great partner of the MCC programs in general, but specifically the summer program. We certainly collaborate in a lot of ways and also cite the Live and Work in Maine ethos as a lot of the reason behind the program. But yeah, the Maine Career Catalyst program started out with our signature summer internship experience. The goal of this program is to connect and convene the interns across different businesses across the state, get them connected with different networking opportunities, different businesses across the state, and kind of get them connected with the state in general so that they know what jobs are there, they know what people are here, and feel more excited and compelled and connected to maybe stay and live and continue working at their job or another job after they graduate. The way the program works is that we work directly with the businesses. So this summer, like I said, we had over 100 employer partners sign on. And what that looks like is the employers who have really robust internship programs that we know they're paying their interns, they have meaningful projects, all of the good things we want to see in an internship program, they pretty much just sign up, and their interns are automatically invited to a whole bunch of parties, as we tell them when we do the orientation. So this summer we hosted 22 You came in the right door. Sorry. Completely scared me. I was like, what did I say? It was 22. But yeah, so we host a bunch of different events geared towards all sorts of interns. So we know that we have interns who are born and raised in Maine. They don't need you to tell them where the closest beach is to their house, but maybe they want to be connected to business leaders from other businesses in different industries, see what's out there, make those connections. But then we also have international students or students who go to school in Maine but are from another part of the country. Folks who are looking for more than just industry connections, but meaningful connections with other interns and with the state of Maine in general. So we're able to put on a whole bunch of events. Sometimes they're really specifically like, here's how you network. And sometimes it's like a smaller excursion on a sailing boat off the mid-coast. And if you put 15 interns on a boat with some employers, they're gonna have to do a little bit of networking. And they're gonna meet each other, whether you give them specific prompts or not. So we try to run the gamut in that way. And that program is a really successful program for us. And we have been meeting a lot of young folks and a lot of college students across the state. But at a certain point, we realized that we were meeting a lot of learners in Maine, but not all learners in Maine. And that's when we turned towards apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship as a way to continue to meet other folks in Maine and create more robust training opportunities for them. I don't know how many of you in this room were at the Equity and Workforce Partnerships, that session that happened earlier today, talking about apprenticeship and internship. Okay, so some of you heard it directly from the director of apprenticeship. So I'll try not to go too into the weeds, but Another program that we're really, really proud of and really want to highlight here today with you all are our registered apprenticeship programs. For those of you who are not familiar with registered apprenticeship programs, they are really specific training programs designed as sort of an alternative to a 2 or 4 year college degree, or as an additional pathway once you've graduated, or for career transitioners. But it's a really specific training plan where folks are able to be paid as they learn how to do a job on their first year on that job. So Educate Maine is an intermediary sponsor, which means that we act as the bridge between the Department of Labor and the Maine Apprenticeship Program and small to mid-sized businesses that we work with. So we are able to work with those businesses to develop out the paperwork, do kind of that bureaucratic administrative work for them to build out programs that are completely customizable to meet their needs. So I think for folks who may have heard of apprenticeship, you might associate it with like electrical or HVAC, plumbing, auto tech. But we're here to say that apprenticeship is really a great opportunity for a whole lot of jobs across industries, across the state. We have programs in banking and finance. We have programs in a biolab up at MDI. We have a program at Central Maine Healthcare, medical assistantship program. We even have a program at a Rona Beauty in Biddeford, a cosmetology program, which we're particularly excited about just because it highlights the customizable nature of it all that really does offer the opportunity for cultural competency to be included in the program. They were able to create a schedule of work that not only means that the folks who finish that program end up with a certification in cosmetology, but also a focus in textured hair, and they were able to build that right into the program. So the programs are, like I said, can really meet the needs of the businesses. There are a few requirements. There's a minimum a year long of training. So any job that you can think of that you would need at least a year to train someone up for, which is a lot of jobs. So there's 2,000 hours of on-the-job training. With that comes the classroom style training. So think of like safety trainings, in-house orientations, additional background context for some of that work. And that's a smaller portion, but it does give folks the opportunity to expand their education and do that free or subsidized by the businesses, by the program. Mentorship is included in this program, which I know other folks are gonna dive into more, the beauty and the importance of that. The whole thing is paid, which is important. And then finally, at the end of the program, participants get a credential of value, which is like a big shiny certificate from the state. Everyone doesn't believe when we say that it's shiny and looks like a diploma, and then they get excited when they see it. But not only is that like a wonderful celebration, punctuation mark, job well done, you are now a certified auto tech. It also means that for folks who may have previous degrees in other countries or may not have been able to finish their schooling for other reasons, at the finish of this program, they have a piece of paper that's valid in any state in the United States that says they are a medical assistant, and they can take that to any other employer. So a really inclusive training program in that regard, just because it's an opportunity to take anyone with little to no experience, train them up, and continue to work and be a part of that company culture and stay on at that business. So if anyone in this crowd at any point wants to chat further about this, I could talk forever and ever, and I won't. But if you're interested because you work with youth or career transitioners and you think this might be a good pathway for them, if you're a business and this is a program you're interested in bringing to your business, or any other community partner, just feel free to come up after and we can chat about how this might work for you.
Thanks, Meg.
Yeah.
I did not realize how much you were doing with apprenticeship, so that's awesome. It seems like that is becoming a huge interest for the employer community, so
Yes,
we're seeing
absolutely.
a shift there. Okay, thank you. We're gonna pass it over to you to introduce yourself, share a bit about your company, organization, and then I'll jump into a question for you.
Awesome. Well, guys, sorry for being late. It wasn't my choice. But yeah, Mohammed Khalid, co-founder of Community Organizing Alliance. We are a civic engagement and social justice organization. And when we think about civic engagement and social justice, especially social justice, we think about the component of communities being self-sufficient. So tackling workforce, that could mean policy, advocacy work. So that's what we dabble in. And yeah, we work from, youth to multi-generational. And COA has 3 big programs, one of them being LEO, Listening, Educating, and Organizing, and that is a civic engagement program where we do a 3-day workshop for young people to kind of learn about, their communities, X, Y, and Z, and then they, go on to the Career Discovery, the CAP program, which stands for Community Advocacy program, and that's a little bit more hands-on. So that is teaching young people about more advocacy tools, going up to the State House for State House tours, really being, aware of what's going on in their communities. And then lastly, we have our Career Discovery program where we bring in young people and other individuals that would qualify, but teaching them about resumes, cover letters, the basics, and really working with other individuals, whether organizations and other people, really tackling workforce initiatives. So that's a little bit about what we do.
Where are you based, and what schools or what communities?
Thank you, Katie. So we do work in Lewiston, Auburn, and the greater Portland area. So currently we're using in-kind space between both locations. So yeah, you guys can find us anywhere.
Great. So I'm just going to keep the mic on you just for a minute. So how is COA connecting youth with leadership and career experiences? Do you have any actual, just to give a few stories or examples how you're working with a specific employer, or what does it look like when you go to the State House? Any stories there that you can share with us on examples?
Yeah, certainly. Well, myself and the co-founder, we like to say we're 2 young people, right, that started the organization. So every day we're thinking about ways we can create spaces for young people to be in leadership roles. So that starts with us and the organization, right, bringing young people in and really making them understand what it means to be a leader and that they're the leaders of today. And then moving on from that, just a couple of examples is, I was working with 2 young people from Lewiston High School, and you can really see, individuals' potentials, and they want to be a part of this. They want to contribute to their life, X, Y, Z. So from there, we started working with them closely, really putting our time and effort into them. And now they have graduated Lewiston High School, and they are now at State Farm as agents. And they got their life insurance, their health insurance licenses, and a couple of other instances is, thinking about talking to the young person and seeing what they really want to be involved in, what they want to do. Sometimes they might not have an idea, but at least having that conversation with them is important and essential. So from there, they're still in the discovery phase of their life, but making sure that they're taking opportunities, and we're also providing opportunities and resources. So anytime we have a young person that reaches out to us or steps through our programs, we're always thinking about how can we keep them? Like, how can we keep them in the community? How can we have them contribute back to their community? And a couple of other instances of career exploration would be like going to UNM and doing like a career day with them. So we've done that in the previous times. We've really made strong, I would say, partnerships within the state, just to connect young people to different resources. One of our individuals that came through our LEO program, our Listening, Educating program, that learned a little bit about advocacy and tools, was really just like, I want to give back to my community. I want to give back in the sense of policy and just being up to date with what's going on in the state. And now she's a committee clerk at the State House. So like things like that, and really just trying to create that pipeline for these individuals to be contributing to the state and their local communities and being part of the process.
Are you a supplemental program at a school, or how would a school or a business, are you reaching out to them? Are they reaching out to you? Like, how would they find you?
Yeah. We're not a supplemental program through schools. We're just an organization. But what we do is just through partnerships and things of that nature, we always have new cohorts of young people. So currently right now we have a cohort of 15 young people. And with that, they're going through credentialing courses. So That means through the Rise Up program, they're able to take retail industry fundamentals, they're able to take, and then stack on, obviously, from that. But we're basically building the foundation for these young people and asking them, what do you want to do? Like, what's your career pathway? Or what are you interested in taking? And when we get an idea or a sense, then we're able to connect to employers that we have relationships with. But also, employers reach out and they're like, hey, COA, I'm looking for this, or I'm looking for youth to contribute to my business, or just to intern, whatever. And we're able to kind of be the bridge for, private and public sectors through the community. So that's what we normally do.
Great. I'll have you pass the mic over to Dustin we're going to pivot here a bit, talking about mentorship and expanding awareness and support. So either in your current work experience or what you've been observing, how can mentorship expand opportunities for our marginalized youth?
Yeah, so a couple of things I'll say in the macro, and then I'll share what I've actually done with my own business. A couple of things that mentorship can do. One, I really think that who you know is still important. And so having a mentorship, and I've had people that I've mentored, I try to share who I know with them. And again, Maine is a small little town. And so that's part of what my job is, to keep people connected. By making those connections, you'll hear about other programs and they can get engaged as well with things like COA. And I've done a lot of telling folks about your organization, yours as well. But a lot of the work that I've done, speaking about the advocacy that COA has done, has been awesome. I also try to make sure that when I have someone I'm mentoring, or if I'm building that program, I'm thinking about what skills do they bring to the table. And a dear friend who said this once, and I asked her if I could keep it. If y'all know Tori Pelletier, I'm going to shout her out. Tori said, personal experience is professional experience. And I love that, because I want to know what is your lived experience, and how does that speak to the professional work that you're looking to do. So I always want to know, what skills does someone have? And if I'm mentoring someone, or if I'm putting that program together, what do you bring to the table, and how can we exemplify that? And then where are things that you can build from that? I think one of the big things, though, that I think mentorship helps with marginalized folks is, how do we help people see that they can be in any of these positions? I think one of the big things that I've experienced is, I also was an elected leader for New Gloucester, and one of the things is getting people exposed to municipal jobs. A lot of people don't realize what county clerks, what town clerks, what elected officials, a town manager, what do they do? And having a mentorship and just expose people to the day-to-day jobs is huge. And so for marginalized folks, or for folks who maybe have never seen themselves in that position, letting them see either myself or others be in that space is huge. Because then it says, wait, that door could be open to me. Or before, I don't think it's for me, now it's something that I can do. And then I can see, how does it actually look? What's a day-to-day look like? And I think more and more of that is needed, and to sort of expose people to what can you become, even though you may be of the global majority, but I feel like a minority here, or feel like you're not as many of the diverse lived experiences that we have. One of the things that I'll tell you is, personally, the mentorship that I did, had a dear friend, a person from Gorham High School, who reached out to me and said, hey, I'd love to know what you do. And I was like, I don't know what I do. I just take referrals and I go in and I consult. And it actually made me stop and think, well, what would I explain to someone who wanted to be a consultant in diversity, equity, inclusion spaces? So first year, this was last year, I had her just shadow me. She came to a lot of the meetings I was in. I exposed her and I talked to her about, how do I think about a proposal? How do I send that off to a potential client? What am I looking for? What's my budget? What am I asking for in terms of pricing? A lot of consultants undervalue themselves. And so I told her, I said, you got to value who you are, what you do, and what you bring to the table. So that first year, she job shadowed me. I brought her to some meetings. We did a couple of community engagements. We talked. And then the year after that, so this past year, she said, I want to come back and do something else. And I said, okay, well, we won't job shadow. Let's have you do an actual activity. And I had a client who was Apogee Adventures. They do outdoor programming. And I said, why don't you take this on? And I let her sort of lead it. She built the program. She gave me some scenarios, and then came with me, and we did sort of a DEI program for them. And so one of the things that I think mentorship is all about is having those folks lead, giving them a voice, giving them the ability to make some change in the work that you're doing is huge. And so that's what I would say, any mentorship program, especially that I've experienced, is I let people sort of lead, knowing what skills they have. And then I always talk to them about, one, what's your goals in life? Where do you want to go? And how can I provide that to you to get you to that next level? And then I allow them to offer feedback. Because a lot of folks, especially in marginalized communities, we never feel like we have a space where we can talk about what we liked or didn't like. Many times I asked her, hey, you were in that meeting, what'd you hear? What came across to you? Where did you see, and this was one of my favorite questions, where did you see the missteps? Where is this client not seeing what needs to be seen? And it gave me some insight into saying, wow, I missed some of that. Great eye. And so just having a space as a mentor to be able to talk about and give feedback, what did you like, what didn't you like, is really important. So I'd say those would be really key credentials for mentorship.
Of course, jump on in.
Yeah, Dustin touched up on the importance of mentorship and being a mentor, but I also do want to contribute. Like, I'm a byproduct of someone that has received a lot of mentoring, right? Growing up in Lewiston, you can only, you get what you see, right? And that's that's like, you can only think that far. But I've had mentors in my life where they said, Muhammad, you can go really far. Like, you know, after Lewiston High School, have you ever thought of a boarding school? And then they took me down to Connecticut, and I loved it. I was like, this new world. I'm like, holy crap. Like, I like this. Like, this is where I want to be. I see myself here. And then, you know, coming back to Maine, it's like, I've been given so much by mentors and contributing to me in my life, and always having a support system, right? Someone that you can always talk to about certain things, because, you know, our parents, like, they've been through a lot. They're still surviving and things of that nature, so they don't, you know, they miss a few things. And with that, it comes because of the society and the environment that we're in. So with that being said, like, I've had mentors, like, you know, do a little hand-holding here and there, but sometimes really push me. And at times, like, I'm thinking, oh my God, like can I do this? You know, and just having second thoughts, because I don't see I wasn't seeing someone that looked like me in these roles and in these spaces. But the mentors made me realize, like, hey, it's not about this or that. Like, this is your path. Keep pushing. And, you know, just having a mentor is so essential, because they teach you what you don't know, and what you don't know will hurt you. So I've just been fortunate enough, you know, for someone to take time.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give two other examples of mentorship-esque programs that I'm aware of in Maine. One is the Olympia Snow Women's Leadership Institute. Olympia Snow put the rest of her, rather than running for Senate again, she decided to fund this nonprofit. And she works with 10th, 11th, and 12th. The program works with 10th, 11th, and 12th grade girls across the state of Maine, and specifically helps them with finding their values, their vision, and their voice. And the young people that are picked for that program are typically nominated by a teacher or somebody in the school system. And it's not the girls who are overachievers or class president or that kind of thing. It's sort of the young girls that are under the radar and just need that little bit of oomph. And they piloted it 6 or 7 years ago, definitely in Lewiston High School and a few other schools across the state. And now I think they're in around 30 schools. But they have opportunities for women, specifically women in business, women in any sector industry, to be an OLA, an Olympia Leader Advisor. So you would be the adult that would put the girls through the program through 10th and 11th and 12th grade. So that's I went to an event that they hosted recently, and they were reporting out on their alumni, and oh my goodness, the retention through that program, because they're doing a very good job with tracking. So many of those young people are staying in Maine and working for a Maine employer because they get to see and be maybe something that they didn't realize that they could be. And then the last thing I just wanted to make a plug for is Junior Achievement of Maine. Did anyone have JA in their school system growing up? Just curious. You did. Okay. You did. Oh, great. Okay. So I'm on the board now for JA. I just joined, so I'm still kind of getting up to speed. But they have day-long programs that we all, as adults and business people, can volunteer. So if you're thinking, okay, I want to get more involved in schools, or how do I help our young people, you can contact JA of Maine, and you can do JA for a day, and you'd see a bunch of different students in classrooms and talk about your experience and how you ended up in your career. They also have different modules that you can teach over periods of time. So I've gone in and taught for a 6-week period, not full time, 6 weeks, but you show up over that period of time. And then they have this really cool program at, I think it's once or twice a year, called JA Titan. And essentially it is a simulation experience for students, and they get to act as CEOs and compete for prizes, but they have to really put on this business hat. So it is a really, really neat program, and I'm really skimming over a lot of the details here, but it's worth checking out, writing down, JA Titan. And JA is really, right now, is working on creating a physical space in Maine that is like, picture just like a huge building with storefronts that feature Maine businesses so that they can go in and liaise and have an experiential learning opportunity with all sorts of different sectors. And the idea would be that all schools would have the opportunity to bring kids in to see all the different business sectors from across Maine, but that will take adult volunteers to staff that kind of thing. So that's just a way that we all can lean in and help our youth by just talking about what you do every single day. So sometimes it's as simple as that. I actually once got asked, a student said, can I interview you and ask you what it's like to do your job? And I was like, why don't you just follow me around for a day at a conference? So I had a conference in Augusta, and it was actually a workforce development conference. And I said to her, I was like, just ask any question. We're actually talking about you, like you're the future of our state. And so she was definitely the youngest person there. And I thought, that's such an easy thing that we could all do. Like if you know a young person in your life, like we should just be inviting them to a day or to a conference or something and having them just sort of follow us around and seeing. And she ended up getting an internship that day in the office of the governor's energy office that summer. It was really, really cool. But anyway, those are just some random examples that came to mind when we're talking about mentorship. So Meg, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add on that. Otherwise, we can go to the next topic. Okay. So empowering youth, creating spaces where young people work together effectively. So I just wanted to talk about models that you're seeing in that space. So how are we, when you have young people coming into your programs, I mean, how are you engaging them so that they actually are asking questions, or how making sure that they're taking something away from the employers, or if you're putting them through modules, like how are you getting youth engaged? And I'm just curious about the models that you use.
Yeah. One example that comes to mind is our LEO program. So the LEO program stands for Listening, Educating, and Organizing. It's through the course of 3 days. So on day one, young people learn about what issues are going on in their community. They listen to one another, just like this. And it's very hands-on as well, of just learning about different listening tactics, what it means, what the next person in their community is having an issue with, and then they start to think about collectively what that means. So individually listening and then just collective listening. And then on day two, what we do is, the second component is educating around different power structures. So institutional power, individual power, what that means collectively. And then on day three, it's organizing. So you bring that all together. So you've, heard about what the issue is. You've been educated on, what you're able to do. And then lastly, it's about bringing that all together. What are you going to do about it now? So that day consists of different organizing tactics, relational organizing, what it means, to come together collectively, but what it means to also just take a stance and do something for yourself. So once that cohort is over, what we do is to keep the young people is, the course of 3 days, they've been talking about different community issues, but now they pick one. So that one community issue that they pick, now they're going to work on it the course of, after the course is over, that cohort is done, they then work on it for a few months, just thinking about like real life community issues and ways to solve that. So they come together, they meet up. This has nothing to do with the organization. We do provide support and resources, but these are young people now taking the next step to be leaders, right? To come together, to work on an issue, community issue, and to do something about it, like taking initiative and, a call to action. And from that, we've seen that work. We've had, young people tackle homelessness in Lewiston, thinking about food and thinking about raising clothing and things of that nature to kind of, do something for their community. But then there've also been instances where young people came together and started addressing the real concerns that are going on in the community, gun violence, things of this nature, and actually talking about it amongst themselves and then saying, hey, Mohammed or Sophia or hey, COA, we want to do this, but we would like more help. And that's when we reach out to a partner or someone within this area and bring them in. Recently, we've done something with Prosperity Maine, and it was around finance, saving, budgeting, because that was addressed by young people, and they were like, hey, we want to learn a little bit more about finances, what can we do, et cetera, et cetera. And we've already known that Prosperity Maine has a saving budgeting program going on. And so just connecting the dots, but now we've given young people this space to kind of take ownership, right, to lead, and to think about ways that they can contribute to their community, but also amongst themselves as well. So, yeah.
I'll go over to you. Yeah, Dustin, over to you.
I'll just add two quick things. One, I think what you're saying is awesome about if it makes an impact on the community, it's huge. It's empowering. And so two specific examples. One, when I was over in Gorham doing consulting, we did what was called an eat and learn. And one of the things we had students do is actually center on a word or a theme, and that theme was advocacy. And then we did an art walk, and we had all the students from young grades all the way up until high school to present with art the way in which they saw that word. And then to invite their own families and invite the community in to help them learn about what does advocacy mean. And so a lot of the programs and modules that I think are really helpful is centered around an event that helps teach or impact the community in some way. So I think that one to me was a really exciting one because it allowed the students to lead, it showed their talents, it showed art, and then it taught, and it gave us an opportunity to step into that space and speak more to what does advocacy mean and how does Gorham, both the community and the school, move advocacy forward, and what does that mean for the DEI work that was going on there. Subsequently, other models, and I'll give you this just as a seed, this is where I'll put the golf hat on, do activities that have really nothing to do with maybe the work you're doing, but are just ways to build relationship. So much of the engagement and relationship building that I've experienced is on the golf course. It doesn't have to be golf, it can be pickleball or whatever, but some activity with youth that help sort of build that relationality, because helping people feel that they belong, both in the state or in the space, keeps them here. The moment they don't feel like they belong, people will start to go elsewhere, and they take all of their talent, all of their skills with them. So again, one of the modules that I've been working through with Tea Time is actually to bring youth and to get people out on the golf course to help them feel, one, like they belong, but center around an activity that really has nothing to do with anything else except to build that relationship. So some models are just activities to pull people together and to collaborate, and good conversations happen on a golf course than anywhere else. So I'll add those two things.
I'd be curious what other, this could just be a brainstorm for the group. I'd be curious what might be other ways to combat that, because we're hearing it left and right. We still have the brain drain. We still have when our young people are leaving. So what else could we do as employers, as adults, as the state to keep our youth engaged and to keep them experiencing what they could be later on in life here? I'm just curious if people have thoughts on that.
I'll just do a quick one. You guys can answer how you will. Money. One of the things that I'm very conscious of, and anytime I've had a mentor or an intern, is paying people what they're worth, paying people their value. When people know that there is a wage, because right now I think one of the biggest issues is survivability. And if you can't even survive in this state, and we know people are struggling, your first thought is, how do I just make it to tomorrow? When survivability sort of is settled and you know you can exist and you can exist well, then you can engage better and you can feel like you can stay here. But the moment you're in survivor mode, and that's what I tell a lot of my clients, is when young students or when youth come in and they're in survival mode, all they're thinking about is getting to tomorrow, food, shelter, warmth, clothing, all those things. They can't think about anything else. When you settle those issues, then you'll have people say, no, I can stay here, I can be here, and not have that drain. People will want to be in this space, but if they feel they can't survive here, they'll go to where they can survive. So that's huge.
That just makes me want to mention, and I'll have you go after Meg, the Maine career exploration program at the state level. So the state has funds, and they provide young people ages 16 to 24. That's what it says on their website. I know. With 75 hours of career exploration and paid work experiences. So essentially, our young people, ages 16 to 24, can just essentially test out and try out different projects, see what it might be like to work at a different employer, and so up to 75 hours of paid exploration experience, which is pretty cool. But then that puts the onus on businesses to enroll in that program, and then also the schools then need to be telling our young people about this opportunity. But the fact that they can get paid, I think, is a huge driver. So I just wanted to mention Maine's career exploration program.
Yeah, that ties in perfectly with what I was going to say. I think a lot of the brain drain is like kind of a constant conversation and generally in workforce in Maine. And I think a lot of the different programs that we run and work on at Educate Maine all are kind of with that goal of career exploration, exposure to industry, and trying to connect young people with careers early, whether that's through the internship program. Pre-apprenticeship is another opportunity connected to apprenticeship, but provides an opportunity for youth ages 16 and up, 16 to 24 also, to be connected with career exploration opportunities that are shorter term, like an opportunity to really be trained and to try something out, but not have that full career commitment, and just opportunities to try different things. And I think exposure is really key. Another program that we have at Educate Maine is called the Maine Mobile Biolab, which I don't know if folks have heard of, but this is a 52-foot trailer that we have hauled around to different rural middle schools around the state to provide high-tech STEM equipment to young people. And it's really driven by an interest in aligning young people with careers and exposing young people to careers. Like the walls of the lab are literally covered with names of jobs that young people could have in the state. So the goal is, when teaching students about a lesson on invasive species in an ecosystem, that they're also talking about, like the job down the road where you could be doing that very thing, or opportunities to learn about like animal testing at IDEX, which is a huge employer in our state. So just another opportunity to start thinking about it younger, kind of to your point earlier, because people start to think about who they are and who they want to be super young. And so I think one thing that we can all be thinking about is exposure at an earlier age. So if you're a business and you have the opportunity to show up at a school and talk about what you do, or talk about what you would be looking for in a future applicant, and whatever we can do to align, what people are learning in schools, and then the types of careers that they're actually able to get after school.
Yeah, I think Dustin and Meg, covered it pretty well. Dustin talked a little bit about, money. That's important. We need to survive. And then Meg talked about opportunities, right? Exposure. And lastly, I'll just add accessibility. So I feel like as a young person growing up here in Maine and just working with a lot of other young people, they just feel like they don't have access to these sectors or these jobs, or they just don't have access to many things. And Maine's population is fairly old, so for us to keep our young folks, like, we need to open up the doors. Like, I love junior achievement. I love it because it gives young people early exposure to what they could be, and that's so important, just knowing what you can be or seeing it potentially, because sometimes you just don't see it. And just creating pipelines for opportunities for young people, I think, is so important. And lastly, I'll just plug in, like, I feel like when a young person wants to get involved, they feel like there's just a lot of gateway that happens in certain spaces, and that kind of just pushes them back. And then in return, they start thinking about other opportunities in other places, whether it's New England or across the U.S., and that really gets them to leave Maine. So I'll just say, if you know a young person, give them a hand, create access, and don't gatekeep.
Is there anyone in the room that has seen a program? I mean, ideally, maybe there's something that we missed that you want to give a shout out to, or maybe you've heard of another model of engaging youth and experiential learning across the country that you want to. You're gonna be my runner, okay? That because I just think I love going to conferences out of state where you're like, oh, that's how Michigan does it, or that's how North Dakota does it. So if there's anything else that we want to plug, go for it.
So actually, I'm going to do two things. First of all, the JA, to go into the age thing. My first year was JA. This year was amazing. The JA day is actually 3rd and 4th graders. So
Okay.
youth does start after below 16. But the other place, and I don't know, because it's Bangor, so I know accessibility, transportation is a tough thing. I actually was able to watch middle school students at the Challenger Learning Center up in Bangor, and it was amazing. Like, it doesn't matter if those kids are going into STEM or if they're going to go be CEOs. It was the best experience that I could see middle school students going through. They had to learn communication skills, teamwork. They had to be quick on analytics because the space that, there was a crew that was on the ground, there was a crew that was in the spaceship, and they had to gauge the weather. They had all of these things that they had to do as a project together. And to see all of those middle school students together working through that plan was amazing. And I know that they have scholarships for students in schools that can't afford to send students there for, whatever it be, a 2-day event or whatever it is. So if you know anybody in the Bangor area or, close to, then I would say it's definitely a great experience. And if you could connect with them, it's awesome.
And in Bangor, the main science festival. Huge experiential learning opportunities for our youth. Okay, we have this hand over here, and then we'll go into the middle of the room after.
Just to piggyback off of that, the main state science fair is for high school students. There's also a middle school science fair as well, but for high school, we partner with a lot of the universities across the state to provide scholarships. So if students are looking to go to University of Maine or Thomas College or something like that, but need a little extra push, that is one opportunity.
Yeah, I think one thing that also taps into what everyone's saying is this, we're realizing that there's this added component of existential crisis. So who am I if I'm in this new context? What do I offer? Especially considering I think a lot of times when we're thinking of the youth or we're thinking of opportunity stuff, we're thinking from a millennial perspective. And Gen Zers are the opposite. Essentially, a lot of them want a European lifestyle. They want a balance. They want access to social safety nets. They want to be able to go to school for nothing. And then, they don't want a career the way millennials did. They want jobs. They want security. They want, and so it's interesting seeing the difference because essentially we're still thinking of trying to encourage them to think of what you love and do what you love, but a lot of them don't want that anymore. And then that's completely different from the next Gen Alpha, which is they're starting to emerge and we have no idea what they're into because they at 8 are talking about things that we didn't talk about till we were 15 or something, So those generational differences, and then when you mix in the multicultural experience, it's so complex. And so we're trying to start now addressing how do we meet you where you're at, but give you the tools where you get to form your identity, a new identity that merges all of these things that feel separate so that you can form a life path that you're happy with that will eventually get you a job that you're happy with. So I think those Gen Z is just, as they get older, they just want to be able to live. And I think that's a very different experience for millennials who not just want, there was a lot of hope, a lot of they're, yeah, they had dreams. Gen Z is just hey, I just want to hang out in the park, for an hour or a day or something, so, yeah.
That's so true. I'll say too, no, hang on, leaving your ego at the door and recognizing, and again, I'll say it, I'm almost 38, and there's a part of me that when I talk to my kids, it's this is how it's supposed to be. You're gonna do it this way. And just recognizing that it's okay and just be flexing on that. So, yeah.
I have a question, and this is something that I've dealt with at my own experience, and I have a 17-year-old boy who's now soon to go to college. And before I had a very naive, I didn't know how to raise the kids until I start, getting my own kids and raising them. Do you see a huge, and I've seen it, and I also want to challenge you and see if you can help. Do you see the big gap between kids, like she was just saying, and parents who have no idea how to support their own kids? All they think is just, I'm sending my son or my daughter to school, and hopefully the school will do a better job in educating them how to do all those things, not only the educational academic things, but also your program, what your program is advocating. How do you reach out to parents so that you partner with them so that they can also put their hands into the supporting of their own kids? Because I see a huge gap there. And without bridging that, it's going to be always a challenge because you don't know what the kids can take or not take at the already 16-year-old level.
If you have a thought on that, do you have? I'm child free.
I have thoughts as a parent, but
Yes.
go. I'll go first, Mom, and then you can go. One of the things that I noticed, especially working in various schools, so I've been in Brunswick, Gorham, I'm currently in the RSU 1 district, and a couple others. One of the things that I grew up, there would not be a time in my life where I'd ask my mom to come in and do something. That has completely flipped. I now have to engage both student and parent. And so one of the things that I do is I want to make sure that the student feels that they are empowered to have the voice first, but I always am transparent with the parent about the same conversation I'm having when bringing them into any of the conversations. And one of the things that I've noticed is, I have a 6 and a 4-year-old. I want to be as informed as my son is. And so I want my son to have the same information that I do, which is very different. I don't want him to feel removed from me and independent and as if he has to figure it out on his own. So that gap that you're talking about is doing things both together, which again, as I was talking about the art walk, was to bring both student and parent together so that they have the same information. So my answer to that gap is to basically transparently engage both at the same time, not one separate from the other, because there's a relationship that I think a lot of younger kids are wanting their parents involved more and are leaning on them than my generation and the generation after, who we were sort of sent out independently to figure it out. Once we were 18, get out the house, figure it out. That generation, that move is no more. Do I have hands all over the place? Sorry.
So going back to that, like the Generation Z, and also after the COVID era, how does a teacher work with the Gen Z or the other potential candidates to work with at a workforce place, adjust with each other's, like if you have the millennials or you have the baby boomers who have these certain work ethics and these certain things that are instilled in them, and like she said, like a lot of the Gen Zs like are they're like carefree and they like how they don't really want to schedule, they kind of just how do you work with that? How do you be flexible with that at the same time as meeting your needs at the workplace?
I think this is a great question, and I'm realizing now that I've been bringing so much elder millennial bias into some of the things that I've been saying. So I've actually never thought about this, and then what that other young lady said. So do you have thoughts on this? Because I'm just, the young people that are coming into your program are Gen Z, and you have needs from employers. So like, what are they saying? What are they telling you on that topic?
Yeah, I can't speak as much in terms of the job performance itself. We see that a lot of young people really do still want to work. I feel like that's a thing that we hear at a lot of these different types of conversations. But I think as you mentioned, young people have different ideas about balance and are not interested in necessarily overworking themselves, but are still going to show up for a job that they have signed up for. I can speak more directly to like communication styles and how I feel like that might differ age-wise. I feel like one thing that I've noticed is that when we onboard new apprentices, we're like acting as this intermediary force. We don't need to communicate with them all the time, but when we do need to communicate with them, we would like for people to respond. and emails just like aren't gonna work. And I am only 25. I'm not that old at all, but I feel like I check my work email, checked my school email like religiously through high school, through college, and I feel like a lot of the folks that we work with, I have to have like an honest conversation with them where instead of saying like the expectation is that you're gonna check your email, I like ask them like realistically, are you gonna check your email? And like just tell me right now if you're not, because if you're not, can I have your cell phone number? Because I will just text you or call you, and I ask their preferences. But I think that where I see the difference is more specifically in communication style and communication patterns. And that's an area that I'm willing to be flexible. I'm not saying that everybody needs to feel that way, but it's really successful when I can text youth at any time of day and they'll respond pretty quickly. And it's just like, that's a boundary that if you're willing to text people off their personal numbers, like not everyone has that capacity or has the tech that they're willing to do that, but that's something that I find works.
Are there any other, I'm just so curious, are people curious about these generational differences? Like should we dive into this a little bit more? Go ahead, and then.
Yeah, okay. We have an answer.
Okay,
so
go,
there
yeah,
you go.
go
I mean, I got some answers too, but go ahead.
Also, I did study this, so this is
Okay, great.
yeah.
Love
So,
this.
but essentially, millennials have more common, actually, work-wise with boomers. Like they are more willing to like rise to expectations. They're more willing to like, because the goal is like self-mastery, and how we define these things are all different. But like, they're more willing to meet where someone else is at. Whereas I think Gen Z, especially post-COVID, they're like, what's the point? Like, this is what I'm willing to give. Meet me here, let's collaborate more. Like, it's less about proving a point and more like, hey, I just want to do what I can do, and this is what I honestly can, and I'm not going to do much more than that, which is honestly similar to, because I also live in Europe, so like it's the same thing. Like, in fact, most people don't want to work that much, so they like, this is like what I'm willing to do. I'm not going to talk to you after 5. I will show up at 9, and I don't want to be friends with you. Like, there's no, you know what I mean? So like, that's kind of where Gen Z is at. From like I'm not saying it's like that across the board, but that seems to be the general trend. And in Europe, it's actually getting worse. Like, they don't want to work at all. So like, here, I think at least they do, but they just want to be able to have their work, the work that they're giving and the effort they're putting in, match with what they're earning. And that's just not the case. So like, why am I putting in all this effort? And millennials, the hope is like, I'm gonna get to a place where I can make a lot more money, and it's just not happening for them.
What else are you all? Oh, I'll come to you with the mic. I'm just curious what else anyone is seeing with the youngest generation that's in the workforce, or if you have a question, we should just popcorn it out there so we can all group solve it.
Well, my question is more in terms of generation values. Like, what do we define as a job? Because when asked this question, most people are like, well, I don't want to work because X, Y, and Z, and I hate doing this, writing emails, X, Y, Z. But then you ask other generations, so like, I still want to be part of a community where I can value and create an impact. And it's like, well, that's still a job. So what is considered a job in terms of like what millennial or Generation Y expectations are?
I think that's a great point, and that's, I think, what a lot of what we're doing is trying to expose that a job is not what we've always considered. I think one of the things that I'll add, and I'll let you go, one of the things that I'll add is we have got to do a better job about flexing on the biases that we bring into the conversation, whether it's, this is the bias of how I think a Gen Zer is, or the bias I think what a job is. Jobs can look and feel all over the place. Again, when I was growing up, I was never really exposed to or told I could start my own business. And it wasn't until 4 years ago I realized I could do that. I want my sons to realize they could do that as early as they need to, and that is a career path. So it's just pulling that bias and that stereotype out and flexing on those boundaries. All right, I'll let you go.
And we have another one in the back after. We have 5 minutes left, so we can wrap it.
Just a quick thought. I think we're not taking into consideration that the cost of living has gone way, way, way up, and the salaries have not. So I'm a social worker. I have been a social worker for some years. I don't think I've ever not had a second job, and I will not be able to afford to buy a house anytime soon. I'm lucky that I get a little apartment in the West End. That's it. And that's what it is for a lot of people. Like, it's just not it's not correlating. So millennials are used to being told by our parents in the previous generation, you work hard, you'll get this, you'll be able to do this, but it's just not true. So we're kind of being gaslit into what our economic possibilities are, and hearing things like, oh, well, don't get that latte. I never get the latte, but I'm still not going to buy a house anytime soon, with 2 jobs.
Yeah, I feel like millennials are hoping it'll still get better. Gen Z is just sort of like, oh, it's bad. So,
Yeah.
oh well, like it's just a fact now.
That is so true.
So I feel like, just listening to like all of can everyone hear me okay?
With the mic up, yeah. Hold it up. Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like listening to what everyone is saying, I feel like I could have a comment about every single little point, like the housing, being able to, I'm working 2 jobs and I still feel like I need to go get a 3rd job, right? The intrinsic bias that lies in every question we've asked, actually, to be honest. I am on the cusp of 50. I have a 17-year-old. I have a 24-year-old. I've worked in multiple industries. I'm an educator of adult learners. I consider myself an educator of young learners, right, in rearing my children. I think what made me come back to Maine and stay in Maine, what makes me work in Maine for less than I could work at another organization in another state, what keeps me here. So when I think about what keeps our youth here, what draws our youth to stay or brings in people that were raised somewhere else, I think, can we really point a finger on one thing? I'm not so sure we can. I think at the end of the day, what we have to do is stop. I love that as a society we label every freaking thing. We have a label for everything. We can't even call ice cream ice cream. It's soft serve, it's hard serve, it's gelato, it's everything. What I'm saying is, and I hope I'm not disrespecting by simplifying a label, but we label everything. At the end of the day, it's not the Gen Z, the millennial, we are all, when I look at every single person who is turning in an assignment, who is 22, 27, 35, 47, my oldest student is 77 years old. They're all turning in something with a different approach, right? A different lens, a different perspective, a different walk of life. We have a very diverse, beautiful student population, all right? We have a grand international population that enriches the conversations, that enriches the workforce, the people that we're putting out. They all get their work done to this excellent degree, but they all get it done in a different way, to your point, right? They may not all stay up until 1 a.m. in the morning doing their work, but they're getting it done how they're going to get it done, is my point. So maybe it's not about having them do the work how you want it done, right? Or having them get there in the path you want them to get there at, or being like the Gen Zers and the millennials that you expect them to be like, or the 80-year-old that brought you up that said, you've got to work until 10 o'clock at night every single night and work all weekend. We're all creating what works for us, and we're getting there in a different way. So I think it's about working with the individual and removing our own bias of what we expect them to be like, and instead appreciate what they're giving us and how they get there. And I think by appreciation, we create an environment that encourages longevity and sustainability, and that's what keeps people here.
I've loved this discussion. Yeah. We could have a whole topic on what this Q&A session just
We should have
covered.
started with this.
I know. We probably could take one more. Oh, wait, we can take one more, you think?
One more, and then we're going to just go into our closing ceremony, so they're going to
Open the. Well, it sounds like they just clapped.
get up for the break. So
Everyone can stay. Well, okay. If anyone has anything else they want to say, otherwise we can end it there. I think this was such an interesting conversation. Thank you all for being such active participants. And we were going to be going into our final talk of the day, and they're just going to open the doors so you can stay where you're at. And you probably have a few minutes for a bio break if needed, but we do not need to move. So thank you all so much.